The wind blew across the empty fields of the old scrapyard, carrying dust and the faint smell of burned metal. Among the piles of broken machines and discarded cargo crates, a small dragon hatchling sat alone. His scales were bright but dusty, and one wing was slightly bent, though he did not seem to notice. His amber eyes were fixed on a small object lying in front of him. It was a toy plane, broken and worn. One wing was snapped, the paint was chipped, and the tiny propeller was missing a blade. Most would call it useless, but not Veilrix. To him, it was the most important thing in the universe. Veilrix hissed softly at a passing scavenger drone. The drone hovered near the scrap, its sensors scanning for metal that could be recycled. Its mechanical arms stretched toward the broken plane. Veilrix's claws shot out instinctively. He did not move from his spot. He did not leave. He growled, a low, vibrating sound warning the machine to stay away. The drone paused and beeped in confusion. It had not expected a dragon to guard a piece of broken metal. After a moment, it backed off, but Veilrix stayed in place. The hatchling would not leave. He remembered the day he had found the plane. It had been a human child who had dropped it while running from danger. The child had been frightened, crying because their family ship had been damaged in a storm. Veilrix had followed quietly, curious and careful. When the child tripped, the toy plane fell from their hands and broke against the rocks. Veilrix had nudged it gently with his snout, unsure what to do. The child had laughed softly, tears still on their cheeks, and thanked the small dragon. That had been the last happy memory Veilrix had of the human. He had carried the broken plane with him ever since, guarding it like it was the most precious treasure in the galaxy. The scrap around him was alive with movement. Machines whirred, and small creatures scuttled through piles of metal, searching for food or useful parts. Some of the larger creatures stared at Veilrix curiously, but none dared to come close. The hatchling's eyes followed every movement. He twitched his tail in warning and hissed low whenever something approached the plane. It was not strong. It was small and broken. Yet to Veilrix, it held everything he had lost. He could not let it go. Night began to fall. The sky turned dark with stars, but the scrapyard did not quiet. Flickering lights from distant ships and blinking signals from machines made the field seem alive. Veilrix's shadow stretched across the ground, small but firm. He had curled around the toy plane, using his wings to shelter it from falling dust. His small claws rested gently on its cracked wing, careful not to break it further. He closed his eyes briefly, listening to the hum of the world around him. He was tired, hungry, and lonely, but he could not leave the plane. He would not. A sudden noise made him spring to his feet. A group of scavenger drones had returned, larger this time, their arms ready to grab scrap. Veilrix hissed loudly and spread his tiny wings. The drones paused, their sensors scanning him. They did not expect a creature to defend a single toy. Veilrix bared his small teeth, his eyes shining in the dim light. He crouched low, ready to leap if necessary. The drones tilted slightly, calculating. After a moment, they retreated, and Veilrix let out a soft sigh. He had won, at least for now. He looked down at the plane, his amber eyes softening. It did not move. It did not fight. But it was alive in a way only he could understand. It had been a gift once, a memory of friendship and kindness. Veilrix whispered to it in his own way, a sound that was more feeling than words. He promised to keep it safe. No one would take it. No one could. It was his responsibility. It was the thing he could still hold from a past that felt long ago and far away. Time passed slowly. The stars moved across the sky. Veilrix's stomach growled, reminding him he had not eaten. His wings ached and dust covered his scales. But still he did not move from the plane. He had thought about leaving, about finding food or a safer place to sleep, but every time he tried, he looked at the broken toy and could not bring himself to move. It was more than a toy. It was hope. And for Veilrix, hope was worth staying awake all night, worth facing danger alone, worth being small in a big, harsh world. In the quiet moments between the hum of machines and the soft wind, Veilrix let himself remember. He remembered the child's laughter, the way the sun had shone on their hair, and the warmth of being cared for even for a moment. The broken plane was a reminder of that. A reminder that the world could be kind. That humans could be kind. That maybe one day he would see such kindness again. A shadow fell over him suddenly. Veilrix lifted his head, ready to hiss, ready to defend. But this shadow was different. It moved slowly, not like the scavenger drones, not like the larger creatures of the scrap. It paused and knelt near the plane. Veilrix's tail twitched nervously. He did not recognize the figure at first. Then he saw the careful hands, the soft eyes, and something inside him stirred. Could this be another human? Another friend? He hissed softly, unsure whether to trust, unsure whether hope could return to him once more. Valrix did not move from the plane. He could not. He would not. The thing he had carried so carefully, the thing that held his memory and his hope, was worth more than anything in the galaxy. Even in the dark, even alone, he knew he had to guard it. He spread his wings slightly, not in fear but in determination. He was small and the world was large. But he had this. He had the plane. And he would not leave it behind. The shadow above the scrapyard moved slowly, deliberate and careful. Calder Voss had been walking through the dusty field for hours, looking for spare parts. His boots kicked up small clouds of dust with each step. Machines lay broken everywhere, and twisted metal glinted in the fading light. Most humans would see this place as useless, full of scrap and danger. But Calder had a different eye. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He saw potential where others saw nothing. When he noticed the small dragon hatchling sitting among the scrap, he paused. Most people would have walked on, leaving it to fend for itself. But something in Calder made him stop. Perhaps it was the way the hatchling's wings trembled slightly, or the way its claws hovered protectively over a small object. Calder crouched a few steps away, careful not to startle the creature. He studied it quietly. The hatchling hissed softly but did not move. Its amber eyes were fixed on the small toy plane lying broken on the ground. Calder's gaze shifted to the plane. It was nothing more than a little metal toy, one wing snapped, paint chipped, propeller missing a blade. Most humans would have thrown it away without a thought. Calder, however, felt something stir inside him. The plane was small, fragile, and clearly important to the hatchling. Calder understood the meaning immediately. Sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest value. He lowered himself slowly, keeping his hands visible and empty. He spoke in a quiet voice, "Hello, little one. I don't want to take your toy." The hatchling's eyes narrowed, tail flicking with suspicion. Calder remained still. He waited. He did not make sudden movements. "I just want to look," he whispered. "Can I?" The hatchling studied him for long seconds. Then it made a low, questioning sound. Calder smiled faintly. That was enough. He slowly reached toward the plane, careful to avoid touching it at first. He wanted the hatchling to trust him. He picked up the plane gently, holding it in his open palms. He turned it this way and that, noticing the cracked wing and missing propeller. Calder could see the careful scratches along the fuselage, marks of something loved and used often. This was not just a broken toy. It was a memory, a promise, a piece of hope. "You carried this far," Calder said softly. "I can see that. You've kept it safe all this time." The hatchling tilted its head, ears twitching. It did not hiss or move away. It only watched. Calder lowered the plane closer, careful not to touch the hatchling. "I'm not going to hurt it," he said. "I just want to help." Calder could feel the eyes of other creatures in the scrapyard. Some stared curiously from the shadows, whispering sounds and clicks. They did not understand why a human would care about something so small, so fragile. Calder ignored them. He had learned a long time ago that humans were not defined by what others expected. Humans built, fixed, and cared even when the galaxy laughed at the effort. He examined the plane carefully. The small wing was snapped at the base, the tiny metal propeller was bent and dull. The paint was scratched from countless falls. Calder could fix this. He could make it fly again, not perfectly but enough. Enough for the hatchling to see the sky once more through its little toy. "I can help you," he whispered. "I can give it wings again." The hatchling did not respond. It only blinked slowly. Calder understood. Trust took time. He would not rush. He knelt on the ground near the hatchling, setting the plane gently on a clean patch of metal. "I need to see it up close," he said softly. "I promise I will be careful." The hatchling shifted slightly but did not move away. Calder smiled. That was all the permission he needed. He began to inspect the small engine, the broken wing, the thin metal frame. Each part was fragile, yet he could see where it could be fixed, where it could be strengthened. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes to Calder. He worked slowly, talking quietly to the hatchling as he went. "You carried this far, didn't you?" he asked. "Through storms, through dangers, through empty lands. You kept it safe." The hatchling's tail twitched in response. It listened. Calder knew it understood more than it could say. "I think we can make it fly again," he continued. "Not just float or spin. Really fly." Calder paused to let the hatchling see him thinking. He did not want it to feel that he was taking control. He wanted the hatchling to see that humans could care, that sometimes we fix not because we must but because we can. It was a lesson he had learned long ago. The galaxy often judged humans by their battles, their ships, their strength. But humans were also builders, fixers, dreamers. Calder wanted the hatchling to see that part. Night fell and the scrapyard grew quiet. The flickering lights of distant ships reflected off the metal around them. Calder did not move away. He stayed near the hatchling, keeping a calm presence. Occasionally he touched the plane, inspecting cracks and bends, planning how to make it fly again. The hatchling did not leave. Stayed close, watching, waiting. Calder felt a small sense of hope stir inside him. Perhaps this was more than a toy. Perhaps this was the start of something bigger. Finally, Calder spoke again. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we will give it wings. You will see it fly." The hatchling blinked slowly as if it understood. Calder could not know for sure. Dragons were mysterious, and this small hatchling had survived alone for a long time. But he felt it. He felt the quiet trust building between them. The hatchling did not need words. Its eyes said enough. Calder leaned back slightly, giving the hatchling space. He would return at first light. He would bring tools, parts, and patience. The little toy plane would fly again, and perhaps, in that small act, the hatchling would remember that the galaxy was not only a dangerous place, could also be full of kindness. And the hatchling Veilrix kept watch through the night. He curled around the broken plane, guarding it as always. But something had changed. For the first time in many days he felt a small spark of hope. A human had noticed, had stopped, had cared. And maybe, just maybe, the universe had room for small things, small memories, and small friendships. When the first light of morning touched the scrapyard, Calder returned. His bag was heavy with small tools, thin wires, and bits of light alloy he had collected from the broken machines around him. He moved quietly, careful not to startle Veilrix. The small dragon hatchling was already awake, curled protectively around the broken plane. The little wings twitched nervously at Calder's approach, but Veilrix did not move away. He had remembered the human from the day before. That small spark of trust had not vanished overnight. Calder knelt carefully on the ground, setting his tools in a neat line. "Good morning, Veilrix," he said softly. "Ready to see your plane fly again?" The hatchling's amber eyes followed his every movement. It tilted its head, unsure but curious. Calder smiled faintly and reached for the broken toy. He did not pick it up too quickly. He let Veilrix see that he was gentle, that his touch would not harm. The plane was more damaged than Calder had thought. The thin metal wing was snapped near the base, the propeller bent and dull, and the small engine rattled weakly when he shook it. But humans had a way of seeing what could be, not just what was. Calder examined each piece carefully, feeling for weak spots, imagining how it could be strengthened. "We can do this," he whispered. "We can give it wings again." Veilrix watched closely as Calder worked. The hatchling's claws hovered near the plane, ready to protect it, but Calder did not rush. He carefully measured the broken wing, cutting a small piece of alloy from a scrap sheet. He shaped it slowly, bending it until it fit the frame of the plane almost perfectly. The hatchling hissed softly, but Calder paused and looked up. He nodded gently and Veilrix relaxed just a little. He trusted the human enough to let him touch the plane. The small engine had no power left, so Calder replaced the internal wires with thin but strong conductors. He connected them carefully, making sure the connections were tight but gentle. Veilrix sat silently beside him, occasionally touching the plane as if checking that it was safe. Calder smiled. He knew the hatchling understood the work even if it did not speak. Sometimes care and patience spoke louder than words. Calder worked for hours. He replaced the cracked wing with his alloy piece, carefully aligned the propeller, and balanced the weight of the plane. He even painted it lightly, not to make it perfect but to restore some of its old color. Veilrix watched every step, moving closer when Calder spoke softly, moving back when he worked near sharp tools. The hatchling seemed to understand that this was a different kind of protection. Calder was not a threat. He was a helper. Other creatures of the scrapyard moved past, whispering sounds and clicking their claws. Some watched curiously. They did not understand why a human would take so much time to fix a broken toy. They said it was foolish. It would not help the hatchling survive. It would not give them food or safety. But Calder ignored them. He knew something they did not. Sometimes, fixing small things made big differences. Sometimes, giving wings to something broken could give hope to a soul that had almost forgotten how to believe. As the day went on, Calder finished the main repairs. The plane was small, fragile, but it was whole again. The wing was sturdy, the propeller spun freely, and the tiny engine hummed when he pressed a small switch. Veilrix hissed softly, his claws brushing the plane as if testing it. Calder smiled. "Almost ready," he said. "We just need to see if it can fly." He looked at the hatchling who watched intently. "You have kept this safe all this time," Calder said. "Now it's time to see it move again. Are you ready?" Valrix blinked slowly. The little dragon crouched near the plane, wings twitching nervously. Calder nodded. He understood that trust was fragile, even after a day of care. He would not rush. Calder picked up the plane carefully, holding it just above the ground. "This is your plane," he said softly. "I only help. You will guide it." Valrix hissed softly and lowered his head slightly. He understood. Calder could feel it. Humans were not always strong or fast. Sometimes they were patient. Sometimes they built wings for the ones who had lost hope. Calder set the plane on a flat patch of metal. He stepped back slowly, giving Valrix room. "Go on," he whispered. "It's your turn." The hatchling hesitated. He sniffed the plane, brushing it with his nose. Then carefully he nudged it forward with a claw. The plane wobbled slightly but stayed upright. Calder's heart lifted. "Good," he said quietly. "Just a little more." Valrix tapped it again. This time the propeller spun, the engine hummed, and the plane moved forward a short distance. The hatchling hissed in surprise and delight. Calder smiled faintly. "See? Wings are not just for flying yourself," he said. "Sometimes wings are for helping others soar." Valrix chirped softly, a sound full of wonder. They spent the rest of the day practicing. Calder showed Valrix how to guide the plane with small taps, how to let the tiny engine do the work, how to balance it in the air. The hatchling learned quickly, his small wings twitching in excitement each time the plane lifted higher. Other creatures of the scrapyard stopped to watch. Some whispered that humans were strange, that they cared too much. But Calder did not care. He knew the truth. Humans could build hope from scraps. Humans could give life to what others had abandoned. By evening the plane could fly short distances steadily. Valrix had learned to trust its movements and his own guidance. He curled around it protectively, but now with pride, not fear. Calder packed up his tools, leaving the hatchling with his precious toy. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we will take it higher. I think it can really fly then." Valrix blinked, a small spark of excitement in his eyes. For the first time in many days he felt that the world was not only full of danger. It was also full of care, patience and kindness. As Calder walked away, the hatchling lifted the plane slightly with his small wings, testing it in the fading light. It moved gently forward, spinning in the air for a short moment before landing safely again. Valrix chirped happily, brushing the plane with his nose. The day had been long, the work had been slow, but the result was clear. Broken things could be mended. Lost things could fly again. And small acts of care could teach even the smallest dragon that the galaxy was not only a place of threats. It was a place where humans could give wings to hope. Valrix settled down for the night, curling around the repaired plane. He watched the stars flicker above, imagining the tiny wings lifting it higher and higher. Calder had shown him that patience, care and kindness could turn broken things into something alive again. The hatchling had learned something too. Sometimes, trust could grow quickly when someone noticed the small things, when someone believed in what others had forgotten. Valrix closed his eyes, but the plane stayed close, a reminder that the sky was not so far away after all. The sun rose slowly over the scrapyard, turning the metal piles into gold and copper under its light. Valrix stirred from his rest, curling around the small toy plane. His eyes glimmered with curiosity and a quiet excitement. He had spent the night thinking about Calder's promise. Today the plane would fly. Today he would see the sky in a way he had never imagined. Calder arrived just as the first warm light touched the horizon. He carried a small crate with extra tools and light metal sheets, ready to make final adjustments if needed. Valrix watched him carefully, wings twitching slightly in anticipation. The hatchling had grown used to Calder's calm presence. He trusted the human now, just a little, enough to know that nothing would happen to his plane while Calder was near. "Good morning, Valrix," Calder said softly. "Ready to see what this little plane can really do?" Valrix tilted his head and chirped softly. He nudged the plane with his nose, testing it as if asking permission. Calder smiled. "It's ready," he said. "All it needs is a gentle push." They moved to an open stretch of land, free of scrap and shadows. The wind was light, brushing against Valrix's scales. Calder set the plane on the smooth ground. He stepped back slowly, letting the hatchling take the lead. Valrix hesitated for a moment, sniffing the air, then tapped the plane gently with a claw. The tiny propeller spun. The engine hummed softly. The plane wobbled forward a few inches. Valrix chirped, a sound of surprise and delight. Calder knelt a few steps away, giving the hatchling space. "You're doing it," he said quietly. "Just guide it. It will follow your lead." Veilrix tapped the plane again. This time it moved farther, skimming over the ground before lifting slightly into the air. The hatchling's wings fluttered nervously as he followed it with his nose, ensuring it stayed upright. The other creatures in the scrapyard paused to watch. Some whispered softly among themselves. They had seen many things in this world, but a dragon making a broken toy fly was unusual. Yet Veilrix did not care. He was focused entirely on the small plane, guiding it with tiny nudges and careful taps. Every movement was precise. Every step was careful. He had learned patience from Calder, and now he applied it with skill. Calder watched quietly, proud of the hatchling. "See," he said softly. "It's not just a toy. It's alive again. You gave it life." Veilrix hissed softly, a sound full of wonder. He had never felt pride like this before. The plane was not just a piece of metal now. It was part of him, part of his memory, part of the hope he had held onto for so long. The plane wobbled as it lifted higher. Veilrix tapped it again, this time faster, sending it a little farther into the sky. The sunlight glinted off its small wings. Calder stood, keeping a safe distance, letting the hatchling learn. "It can go higher," he whispered. "But only if you believe it can." Veilrix chirped and with careful movements, nudged the plane once more. It rose into the air steadily, spinning gently, balanced perfectly. For the first time, Veilrix felt the joy of seeing something fly that he had thought lost forever. The plane circled above him, small but alive. He hissed softly, wings twitching with excitement. His amber eyes shone with wonder. He had kept this plane safe through storms, through loneliness, through nights of hunger and fear. And now it was soaring above him just as Calder had promised. Calder clapped quietly, careful not to startle the hatchling. "You did it," he said. "You made it fly again." Veilrix chirped and nudged the plane again, making it spin and loop in a small circle. Other creatures watched, whispering in amazement. Humans were strange, they said, but maybe not all humans. This one had given wings to something broken. This one had made hope visible. The plane dipped and rose again, and Veilrix flapped his wings instinctively, following it. He felt a strange sense of freedom, a feeling he had never known before. The scrapyard did not seem so empty, the wind did not seem so cold, and the sky did not seem so far. For a moment he forgot the danger, the loneliness, the hunger. He only focused on the plane and the gentle presence of Calder. Calder smiled quietly. He had seen many things in his life, ships, engines, battles, but this was different. This was pure. A dragon, alone and afraid, trusting a human enough to let him help something precious. A toy plane, broken and forgotten, rising into the sky again because of care, patience, and attention. Calder understood that sometimes, the smallest acts could have the greatest impact. The plane landed gently back in front of Veilrix. He chirped softly, brushing it with his nose. He had learned to trust it again, to see the wings not as fragile metal but as a promise. Calder knelt beside him. "See," he whispered. "Even small things can fly if you believe. Even small hearts can feel hope again." Veilrix hissed softly, curling protectively around the plane. As the sun climbed higher, they practiced together. Veilrix nudged, guided, and sometimes flapped his own tiny wings to give the plane a lift. Calder remained patient, praising small successes and waiting through small failures. Slowly the plane flew longer, steadier, higher. Veilrix's eyes sparkled with joy and pride. The hatchling felt alive in a way he had not for a long time. By late afternoon, the plane could glide in steady circles above the open land. Veilrix chirped loudly, his tail twitching with excitement. Other creatures watched in silence, realizing that humans could do more than fight and conquer. Humans could fix, could build, could give life to things long thought dead. Calder watched quietly, knowing that the hatchling had learned something important. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy had learned something too. Veilrix curled around the plane that evening, his tiny wings folded but ready. He looked at Calder and hissed softly, a sound full of gratitude. Calder nodded. "Tomorrow we will go further," he said. "I think it can fly even higher." The hatchling blinked slowly, feeling a warm sense of hope. The plane had wings. He had seen it soar. And for the first time in a long time, Veilrix believed that the world could be a place of small miracles. The story of the small dragon hatchling and the broken toy plane spread quietly, like a soft wine through the galaxy. It was not a story of war, conquest, or great battles. It was a story of something smaller, something gentle, but something powerful in its own way. Veilrix, the hatchling, and Calder, the human engineer, had shown that even the smallest acts could matter to the largest hearts. On Veilrix's world, creatures whispered about what they had seen. A human, they said, had repaired a broken plane not for money, not for fame, not for survival, but for hope. He had worked patiently with care and without expectation. He had given wings to something lost. And in doing so, he had given wings to the heart of a dragon. Veilrix had changed too. The hatchling, once lonely and scared, now carried a spark of confidence. He learned to trust others slowly, cautiously, but he trusted. He had learned that humans could be more than noisy, violent, or selfish beings. Humans could be builders, helpers, friends. Calder had taught him that sometimes, protection and care were as powerful as strength or fire. The news traveled beyond Veilrix's world. Traders spoke of a small dragon guarding a little plane. Refugees passing through the system mentioned the human who took time to care. Scholars debated quietly in the halls of distant space stations. Why would a human devote hours to repairing a tiny toy? They had studied humans for centuries. They knew them as cunning, clever, and often violent. But this act was different. Could not be explained by strategy or profit. It was pure. It was kindness. Other dragons, older and larger, remembered the tale too. They saw Veilrix flying the little plane under the open sky, guiding it carefully, and realized that humans could give hope, even when hope seemed impossible. They had watched humans wage wars and build massive machines, but here a human had fixed something small and fragile, and in doing so had reminded an entire species that care mattered. Calder returned to the scrapyard often, bringing small improvements for the plane. He did not need thanks. He did not need recognition. He only wanted to see Veilrix smile, to hear the little hatchling chirp with joy as the plane flew. It was a simple thing, but in its simplicity was truth. Humans could build hope from scraps, repair what others had abandoned, and give life to the broken. Veilrix became stronger, more confident. He learned to fly himself, following the plane, racing it, and sometimes lifting it gently into the air with his own wings. Other hatchlings watched and tried to copy him. They saw that the human had not only fixed the toy but had also changed Veilrix. His courage and curiosity had grown because someone had taken time to notice him, to see the small things that mattered. Galactic travelers began to tell the story. They did not tell it as a battle story. They told it as a lesson. They said, "Observe the humans. They are not all fighters, not all destroyers. Some will fix what is broken. Some will help what is lost. Some will care when no one else does." And slowly, quietly, perceptions shifted. The galaxy, for a moment, remembered that power was not only in war, strength, or speed. Power could also be in patience, kindness, and attention to the smallest lives. Veilrix carried the plane with him always, even when he grew larger and his wings became strong. The little plane became a symbol, not of flight or metal, but of trust, hope, and human care. Calder watched, satisfied not with praise, but with the knowledge that one small act had changed a life, and perhaps, in a small way, changed the galaxy. Other species began to understand humans differently. Where once there had been fear or dismissal, there was now curiosity. Humans could build ships, yes. Humans could fight, yes. But humans could also repair, protect, and give wings to the things that others had forgotten. In that quiet understanding, respect began to grow. The galaxy did not shout it. It whispered. But it changed. Veilrix perched on a rocky ledge one evening, the plane lying gently by his claws. The sky was wide, filled with stars. He watched the plane and thought of the human who had shown him the world could be gentle, even in a galaxy that was often harsh. He chirped softly, nudging the plane with affection. In its tiny flight circuits, in the careful welding, in the small painted wings, Veilrix saw proof that the universe could still be kind. Calder stood a short distance away watching the hatchling. He did not need to speak. Veilrix did not need words. The plane had wings. The hatchling had hope. And the galaxy, quietly, had learned that humans could be more than strength and fire. They could give life to what was lost. They could inspire trust, even in a small dragon on a distant, dusty world. And so, the scrapyard became a place of memory. Not for battles fought or treasures won, but for a human who noticed small things and a dragon hatchling who learned to trust again. Stories traveled from world to world. Scholars, travelers, and even warriors remembered that a single human had taken time to repair something broken, and in doing so, had reminded all who heard the tale that humans were capable of greatness in ways the galaxy had often overlooked. Veilrix chirped one last time as the plane soared above him, small but steady. Calder smiled. The hatchling's wings flapped in rhythm with the tiny plane. Together they danced across the open land, a simple act, yet full of meaning. In that quiet, small moment, the galaxy remembered something important. Humans could be builders of hope, guardians of trust and givers of wings. And sometimes, that was more powerful than any weapon or any army.